obviously everybody feeling valued is important, and that's part of the
Hmm.
culture because when people walk in to do a tour, you can feel that. We also need our sales leaders to feel comfortable in what they're selling. And that goes back to having a great culture. So we really need them to feel comfortable with what they're doing and what they're selling. And so we have to have that amazing environment for them to do so. But beyond that, we have an expectation that sales is not the role of just one individual. Sales is everybody's responsibility. And
Yeah,
so every team member has a role in the sales process. And it might be different. It needs to be what that individual is comfortable with. So I don't think we can say across the board, dining does XYZ, because we have to make sure that whatever part of sales they're involved in is something they're comfortable with, or else it's going to feel forced. And we never want that we don't want to put somebody in that position, first of
sure.
all. And we don't want our tours or our residents or members to feel that either.
Welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast from Unlock Health, a full-service marketing partner for the aging services industry. Join us for candid conversations exploring the latest marketing strategies with the senior living community leaders and innovative solution partners who are moving our industry forward. Together, we'll build a community to build better communities. Is your company growing on purpose or just getting bigger? Hello, I'm Larry Williams, and welcome to the Move In Senior Living Marketing powered by Unlock Health. If that question made you pause, you're in the right place. In this episode, I'm joined by Heather Tussing, president of the Aspenwood Company, an operator that's redefining what intentional culture and growth looks like in senior living. Heather shares what it means to lead with purpose, how culture truly begins at the top, and why creating communities that feel like joy isn't just good for residents, it's good for business. We cover how to scale culture across multiple states and communities, why every team member, not just sales, plays a role in occupancy, and practical ways to hire, train, and recognize people in ways that stick. So whether you're growing your census, your portfolio, or your team, this conversation will challenge you to lead with intention, not just ambition. Let's jump into it. We were on the move in senior living marketing. I got Heather Tussing with me. Heather, you and I were just chatting away. I was like, let's hit record so we can actually record this conversation. Heather, thanks for joining us. Heather is the president of the Aspenwood Company. And before we go any further, Heather, please tell us about the Aspenwood Company and what you're doing there.
Well, first, Larry, thank you so much, and it is a pleasure speaking with you. I am so excited to be at the Aspenwood Company. I've been there nearly 3 years now, and I was really hired to bring change to the organization, which is both exciting and difficult, but we are doing so much. I truly have an A team as a senior team, and that goes down through the community level as well. And we're really just looking at everything and what can we do better? Because I think that as leaders and as an organization and industry, we have to continuously strive to be better. So that's what we're doing. We're working through a lot of technology right now, working with our community team members, what works, what doesn't work, because we don't want to be the largest, we want to be the best,
I
and that
love that.
takes continuously looking inward and seeing what we can do better.
Yeah, and I think that really highlights what we're going to be speaking about because, you and I have spoken about this before, which is it's not about just growing for growth's sake, but it's really about that
No.
experience you provide. Before going
Mhm.
further, Aspenwood Company, is it AL, IL,
Yeah.
Continuum Care? Tell me about that.
So we're IL, memory care.
Hmm.
So some communities have all three. Some communities are standalone only, IL or standalone AL. We have both luxury portfolio, which are primarily our luxuries, primarily urban infill. So like right in the heart of River Oaks in Houston, or the heart of Rice University, right next to Rice University. We just opened our latest on the property of Green Hills Mall in Nashville. So
Love it.
it's very walk. I left for dinner.
Yes.
I walked across the parking lot for dinner when I left the community. So our urban infill is our luxury properties, which are very much about our members continuing to live the life that they lived before. So they shopped in River Oaks, the shopping center. That's where they're going to continue to shop, and they're going to be within walking or golf cart distance of it from our community. And then we also have mid-luxury properties that we're very proud of that are, some of them are urban and some of them are more suburban that you typically think of with that mid property. But they all have amazing programming and amazing purpose, and that's why we do this. We do this for the purpose of enriching our residents' life. And my goal as a leader has not changed from the time I started my career as a sales director, ED on up. My goal is always for the residents or our members to live a fuller life with us than they lived before us. And that comes in all different fashions, whether that be nutritious meals, options, trying new things, going to the theater for the first time. I just want them to live a fuller life with us than they had. And obviously, the social outcomes of just being in an environment where you have so many social opportunities built in without leaving the roof that you're living under.
That's incredible. I love that. Just try, like promote trying new things. And I love that
Correct.
mission. And I also tell you this, I noticed that you were in Middle Tennessee, what, about
Yes.
2 weeks ago. And I was so jealous. I'm like, Heather, please let me know next time you're
Yes,
here. But
for
that's a
sure.
wonderful area that you have a
I
community in.
love Nashville.
So it sounds like you have many locations in Texas, but you're continuing to expand in other states. And
Yes.
I think I want to highlight that because that's going to
Mhm.
be an important part of this conversation.
Yeah.
So
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 we're
I'm just going to
Southeast
put
based.
a yeah, Southeast based. I'm going to put a
Mhm.
pin in that part because we're going to come back to that.
Okay.
But I wanted to actually start with where we met, which was Health Tech, and I think it
Yes.
was 2 years ago. So the
Yeah.
reason I thought that was a good starting place is just the importance of connecting as humans,
Sure.
and how valuable that is within this community, just because we're able to learn from each other, we're able to grow from one
100%.
another, and how important that is. And so I just want to really highlight that, which is yes, we can do this without going to the conferences, the events, and all of that. But man, it's so valuable to connect as people and really lift each other's up, lift
It
each other
is.
up.
It is. I mean, connection is so important because the jobs we do are not easy. And sometimes they can honestly be lonely to a degree. I mean,
Sure,
we're on the road a lot, depending on what your level is as an organization. I mean, that can kind of make it where, you can't necessarily be best friends with everybody, but you can be friendly, of course, and you
for
want to
sure.
be. Um, but it can be somewhat lonely. But I think through that connection, not only does it feel myself, it fills my individual bucket. Like I would much rather, I'm the kind of person, and my VP of HR will even point this out to individuals who want to meet with me at conferences or whatever. I would much prefer meeting with two or three people at a time than having like a huge, like I just do better in that smaller environment where I can make it more, where we can actually discuss and have personal
Mhm.
conversation, get to know each other. I get to know about people's families and their lives and their interests. But then also like so many, just like you, Larry, just so many of those individuals I've met, like those are people I stay in contact with. So
Yeah,
if I have a key leadership role available or open, I can reach out to them and say, hey, can you spread this through your network? Do you know of anybody? I had a peer-to-peer conversation with somebody who's a COO, honestly, of one of our, we compete in certain markets, but
yeah,
we just had a collaborative discussion on, hey, here's where I can help you, you can help me. Because there is, the secret sauce is in the people that you're working with and the leadership you have to ability to make this come to fruition. I talk about the things we're doing because there's no secrets in what we're doing. If I didn't have the strong team I'm working with to make it come to fruition, it wouldn't happen. So there's nothing wrong with sharing what's working and not working. And hey, we've all had failures. Like if anybody tells you that a rollout hasn't hit a bump in the road, I would have to say that that's probably not factual, because we've all had things that haven't gone
yeah,
as successful as we want. And let's share that. Like nobody's perfect. And
sure,
we're all trying to do the same thing, which is make senior living better
for
and
sure.
also create a better environment for our team members as well.
Yeah, we just grow through that. It's the iron sharpens iron
100%.
philosophy, and I
100%.
will always come back to what Brad Bushby said at Smash at a lunch, which is we don't compete against each other. We compete against seniors aging in isolation, and that
Exactly.
always
100%.
really hit home in why we need to share ideas. Like, look, there's an
100%.
abundance of opportunities. We need to go and connect people and
Right.
connect with others and continue to think about these best practices that's going to improve society as a whole. So thank you for sharing that. You and I shared
Mhm.
that, and you and I were chatting before we actually hit record. I said, let's save that for the podcast because I
Yes.
think that's really important to note. Uh, and you mentioned like us staying in touch. And
Yes.
so as we really got this podcast up and going, you were one of the people I wanted to chat with. I love the content you add on LinkedIn. I love your voice. I love of what you're saying and how
Thank you.
important like sharing insights and information is to you. So that being said, I reached out to you about 2 months ago and said, hey Heather, would you like to join us on an episode of the podcast, and what would you like to discuss? And I appreciate the feedback, which was culture. Culture is
Yes.
so important. And I think it's really, yes, this is a marketing and sales podcast, but it hits that. And I think we
Yes.
need to think about the culture at a deeper level, because that's
Mhm.
going to affect, the residents, that's going to affect the staff and everybody. So thank you for mentioning
Yes.
that. And I'm looking forward to having that conversation with you today.
I look forward to it. It's my pleasure.
So let's start with this. Like, culture. How do you define culture? Like, what is culture to you?
I think culture is what you feel. So
Sure.
I think that as an organization, right, leading an organization, then I need to work with my team and we need to decide what appropriate culture is for us as an organization. And then we have to lead by example. You don't walk the walk. I mean, you walk the walk. You don't say it and don't do it. You have to lead by example and you have to be caring. You have to have empathy. I try to hire team members who have been in the roles that they're supporting. I mean, I began as a sales director. I've been in ED. I've been in regional. I've been all the compliance. I've been all the roles to get to become president. And so I think it's important that my senior team also has walked those roles that we're trying to help so that we understand where those culture challenges could be, and we also understand it's not going to be perfect every day. You know,
Mhm.
we don't live in a perfect world. We're humans working with humans. There are going to be days where everybody's not the happiest, but we have to try to instill a culture that goes beyond that. And that's really us leading by example, us going into communities, which is my favorite thing to do, and really having those discussions and and noticing positive culture and sharing that throughout the organization. So let's not recreate the wheel. If we walk in a community and we see really positive things occurring, let's share that throughout the organization. We don't have to recreate it in every community. I really think what it boils down to is when you walk into a community. I recently hired a new SVP of sales who I'm so excited to have on board, and she walked into a community, one of the first communities she visited. She's like, Heather, when I walked in, I felt joy.
Mm.
That's what we want, because when you feel joy or if you feel tension, our residents and members feel that, our team members feel
Yeah.
that, and nobody wants to feel that. Everybody's roles are difficult enough. Like there's a lot of work going on in all of our daily what we do in business. So we want to create that positive environment and you can feel that. And that's what culture is. Culture is caring. Culture is celebrating our team members' birthdays and work anniversaries, celebrating their wins. I had one team member at a community that had a daughter graduate from high school and a daughter graduate from college within like a week of each other. I celebrated that with her. That's something to celebrate. But that's the culture that we want in our community. So we care about our team members both in a work environment, but both also in what they're doing personally as well.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, once you define that culture and you celebrate that culture bleeds out. That
It
culture bleeds
does.
into the community. That culture bleeds into the residents. And I think about, even away from senior living, which is almost that, I call that vibe check, which is
Yes.
when you walk into a store, if you walk into a restaurant, if you walk wherever you go, you can feel that culture. And like you said,
Right.
like your new sales leader, like, I just feel joy. That says a lot. And I think
It
that
does.
one thing we have to, be aware of is you have to be intentional about that. That
You
culture
have to
just
be.
doesn't happen. And I think, like you said, it starts at the top. That doesn't say everybody's going to have a great day every day,
No,
but if you intentionally focus on that, yes, actually, the right culture can actually improve your days and create more joy going into the
yes,
day. And I
it does.
appreciate everything you said. When I asked, how can you define culture, I was not expecting that response. And well done. I love that
Thank you.
response.
I mean, culture is everything. Without culture, you're not going to see success.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this. I feel like it, and I know what your response is probably going to be, but do you see that culture is even more impactful in senior living? Just because
Oh,
I've just
$100%.
the people who we serve, the families, the residents, everyone. I just feel like it's an extra, I would say not. It's an expectation, but I think it's more of a commitment, and that we
It
need to
is.
show up and be our best selves, and how
It
that's going
is.
to resonate, and it's going to end up making us better humans also.
It is. It is. I mean, in reality, I mean, our team members, our frontline team members have the most interactions with our residents and members of anybody. That's the reality, because they're the ones in providing hands-on care. They're the ones doing one-on-one activities with them. They're the ones that are leading amazing programming with our residents and members. So they're having the most interactions. So it's important that they feel and buy in, and they feel that culture, and they feel part of it because they're being celebrated for it.
Mm.
When they're doing the culture, we're celebrating that they're leading that culture. So they have the most impact on what a member's or resident's day looks like, and it's going to be a lot based upon that culture and that attitude they come into their apartment with. If somebody, if our spouse wakes up grumpy, then we're going to have the opportunity. We can either choose: are we going to be grumpy today, or are we going
Yeah.
to we're going to be happy to try to turn that tide around? It's the same with our team members, and so we want them to. They have such an ability. I mean, they have such an impact on the days of our residents and members. They have the ability to directly impact what that resident or member's day looks like. So we need it to be positive.
Yeah, right. No, I appreciate that, and like you said, it's in a certain way. I'll kind of take what you said and condense it and just say, really, that's a choice. The
It is a
attitude you
choice.
walk in with, the attitude you carry throughout the day. That is a choice. Now, question for you. I know you. This is a passion for you.
It is.
Was there a specific moment where you realized how important culture is in leadership, or was
I
it just
think,
something that over
for
time you
sure.
just developed?
For sure. Early in my career, and I will say that obviously as my career has grown, I say my lens has grown. So what I see has grown dramatically as my career has grown. When I was an ED of a single community, I thought that community was the be all end all. Obviously, it wasn't. It was important to me, and it was
Sure.
important to my team members, and the success was important to the organization. But as you know, my as I, and that's one of the things I try to teach my even my community leaders is that like I try to help them, give them the why to see the bigger picture, because I wasn't given that opportunity. So I try to explain why we're doing what we're doing, because I think that also helps with our culture, right? They want to know what I can share with, and I can't share everything, but when I can share information that's beneficial, and I do think it helps with the buy-in of what we're trying to roll out, and it also helps with the culture. But no, I had one of my first roles in senior living where I didn't have the best culture that I walked into, and I really wasn't given a lot of opportunity training and so forth. It worked out for me because I had drive. I didn't know what I was doing. In full transparency, I walked in and threw like 8 trash bags of trash that probably wasn't all trash away, because I wasn't given the training. I'd been a
Sure.
sales director prior, but I'm sure I threw away things that were supposed to have been shredded, or they should have been filed away for X number of years, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
But that job, I was able to create the culture, and I was able to determine that if I had the opportunity to move up in my career, which I've been fortunate to do so, that I was going to make sure that I was a different type of leader. And that's what I worked hard to do.
Yeah, it's obvious that you've going back to the word intentional. It's a part of your leadership, and you've been very
Hmm.
intentional about that. When we think about leadership, we think about make sure you're bringing along the right people. Now, that
Yes.
being said, how do you hire for to continue that culture? Is there any recommendations or any advice you have for listeners of like how do you make sure you keep that culture going with the right
Yes.
hires?
I mean, I think it's very important that you're very articulate with the candidates that you're interviewing, that this is the expectation, this is what we do, this is how we do it, and it's not for everybody, and that's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine. If we're not the right choice for you, I'm sure there's another place that is the perfect choice for you. It doesn't make you a bad person, and it doesn't
Mhm.
make us a great person. It just means that we might not be the right fit, and that's okay. So I'm very articulate when I'm interviewing, ensuring that they understand the expectation, they understand what we do and how we do it and why we do it that way. And so I'm setting the expectation up front so that they don't coming in and not knowing the whole story isn't going to benefit anybody. And the
Yeah.
same if somebody's coming into a turnaround community, they need to know that. And a turnaround community is for a specific person. Not everybody enjoys that. Some people are amazing turnaround. I love to turn around. People are amazing at keep it taking a ship that's going pretty well and making it a little bit better. That's a talent as well. Again, it's not right or wrong, it's just different individuals, and you have to be open about what you need so that they're coming into a situation that they want to be in. It's not benefiting us or them if I hoodwink them into coming into a situation and it's not what
Yeah.
they anticipated. It's not going to benefit any of us, and I don't want it. Our Honestly, our residents and members deserve better, and our potential team members deserve better than that too.
Yeah, it kind of takes me to the sales process, which is,
Mhm.
a good salesperson or business development. You think about really exploring that fit, and I say that a lot. So, me being on the business development side, I want to
Mhm.
explore the fit. I want to make sure it's a fit on both sides because if you try
100%.
to force something or if you try to make it happen, it's going to show itself very quickly. It's better to just make sure everyone's
Yes.
aligned, and that's how you have long term growth. That's how you really have long term
Right.
success. And I think about was it Jim Collins? Just make sure you have the right people in the right seat on the
Yes.
bus, and not just trying to let's just get them in and figure this out. No, let's
No.
again going back to what you started with, which was being intentional. With these
Yes.
steps, and I really appreciate you saying that. Just
Yes.
because far too often I think we just want to get people in and throw them in different places, but
No.
you got to set them up for success
You have
first and
to. And I
foremost.
think, I mean, we've added in assessment processes to help give us a different point of view, and the assessments might be different based upon the role. Because again, we found, and honestly, I learned this through one of my colleagues in the industry at a different organization. Real strengths is great for sales candidate individuals. And we also use it with EDs because we expect, they're part of the sales process, obviously. But we have other assessments that we use for other roles as well. So I think it's a good idea to look and dig as deep as you can and to get additional information and above and beyond the interview process. But no, I mean, I think it's important to find the right candidate, not just a candidate. So, for example, it took me 6 months working with an external professional, amazing recruiter who I've worked with for many years. He's both placed me and found candidates for me. So we have an amazing working relationship. He knows what I'm looking for. It took me 6 months to find the SVP of sales that I went with. And there were so many amazing candidates along the road, but I knew exactly what we were looking for. And culture was a key part of that, along with the experience, their experience, their skill set, what they've done. But equally important to me was that they brought that right culture, and amazingly they have. So it took us 6 months, and I was able to do that because I have a strong team in place. I wouldn't
Yeah,
be able to go 6 months. Well, one, I've been a VP of sales, so that helps. But I also have a huge role, so I can't just focus on sales alone. I
sure.
have amazing regionals, two amazing regional vice presidents in sales roles, and then also amazing VPs of ops that are very involved in the sales process as well. So having a strong bench strength and having those strong team members allowed us to take the time to find the right candidate. And when I'm hiring for very key roles, I also have multiple team members. So I interview, I narrow down the process, but then I have my senior team be part of that interview process as well, because it has to be a good fit for all involved as well with them.
Sure.
So for my senior team, they have to feel comfortable and like this is the right candidate. And that candidate needs to feel like I can work well with this senior team as well.
Yeah. No, that's key is make sure it's a two-way street
For
and
sure.
not just kind of putting them out there, but make sure that's everybody's working together.
Right.
And I appreciate you just slowing that down and saying like this is how important it is. You need to actively slow this down and make sure it's the right person, especially in specific roles. And think about the larger team aspect. Yet, like you said, you're serving the southeast primarily
Hmm.
from Texas all the way to North Carolina. Is that right?
Yes, correct. Hmm.
How do you keep that culture strong across so many communities, across so many states? I think that's something as senior
Yeah.
living continues to grow, that's the challenge. I think about scaling, whether it's scaling marketing efforts, scaling,
Hmm.
different, let's say, business challenges. That's one of the things is how do you scale that strong culture across
Hmm.
so many communities?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the interview process so that they
Hmm.
know. It goes to the orientation process. We have, as we open new communities, we bring them into some of our very successful communities so that they see it in action.
So that's
So
good.
not only is it us telling it and us training
Yeah.
them, but it's also them seeing it in action in an open community. And usually that's multiple communities that they're visiting to do that with. So that's key. We do a lot of visits, so we're very much in touch. I was in community last week in Charlotte, and I was able to hug team members and hug members
Yeah.
and dine with them, and continually staying integrated is a key importance. No matter what anybody's role is, we have to remember our role. We have our roles because we're serving members, residents, and communities.
Sure.
Without that, we don't have jobs. So we need to be in those communities and be present. And also, I use video a lot. So I'll do shout out kudos videos for anniversaries and birthdays, and I use video technology in order to do that. And it's so simple, but I personalize each one. I don't send out. I do birthdays every month, but I don't do one video. I do one video for every individual because they're important to me. And
Yeah.
I again, it's leading by example, and it's also something that I love to do it. I mean, if I could spend all day focusing on culture, I would love it. That's not the reality of
Sure.
anybody's role, even in people relationship type individual role, they still have other things they have to do outside of that. But I absolutely love what we do, and having satisfied, actively involved team members is takes work, and that's the work we put into them.
You're right. It takes work.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you saying that about the birthdays and the videos because people want to be seen. And I think
They
when
do.
people see that, they're seen, and far too often it's easy to say, oh, they just want more money or they just want, team members need this or that. Honestly, I feel like so many people, if they can just find value in what they do every day and
That's
see
right.
that
Purpose.
what they purpose, that's what's all about is
Mm-hmm.
having purpose in what you do. If you're going to invest 40 plus hours each week into a role,
Mm-hmm.
you want it to have purpose. And then on top of that, if you can have validation in that, man, that goes a long way.
Right.
It,
No, for sure. And I mean, I'm very much into habit stacking and making the most of my time. I spend a lot of time in airports and on flights and so forth. So I always keep a bag of cards with me, a pen my favorite pens, and stamps so that I can write thank you notes and I can write congratulatory notes. I very much so believe in the video and then
yeah,
also in handwritten notes as well. I feel like it's a habit that has gone by the wayside to a degree,
yeah,
and I think it's very important. And then we also use a system called Thanks. It's like THNKS, and it's where we're able to send like a gift card to like Dunkin' or
yeah,
Starbucks or Uber Eats or DoorDash, like all different, there's whole different things.
yeah.
But we're able to send it to an app and just say, "Hey, great job," and we're able to send it in real time. And then we also created this was actually came from one of my regional clinical ops leaders. She said, "Hey, is there something that we can create, some type of card that I can have like a $5 gift card, like Starbucks or whatever, with it, but says, hey, I can write on it like thanks, like you made a difference today, and like what they
Yeah.
did." Yeah. So it's all of our leaders. It's like this. These ideas don't come from me. These ideas come from having an amazing, strong team that works together for the better or the organization, and that has made a big difference too. So it's not like one thing we do; it's all different things that we do, but it's really having cultivating an environment where people can speak up and say, hey, let's do this, or hey, we need this. But
I,
being present is a big part of it too.
being
we
present,
have we have to be in communities.
I feel like it's harder now than ever is to be present because I wrote down data driven. I think far too often we get so focused on the data that we kind of overlook the human elements. And
Yeah.
just like you said, to take a step back and connect with
Hmm.
people is going back to kind of the conversation we had at the beginning about
Yes.
conferences is connecting as humans.
Yes.
You see a lot through data, but at the same time, just sitting down and hearing kind of the background and understanding and going back to having that vibe check at the beginning, you can feel if there's energy in the room, you can feel
Yes.
some of that. So I
Yes.
think that's really important. And so I'm going to kind of take it into a different direction, which is this is this podcast is for marketing and sales
Hmm.
primarily. Now, how do you leverage, this positive culture in some of your marketing and branding efforts, or do you try to,
We
leverage some of this
100%
strength?
do.
Yeah,
We
okay.
100% do.
I didn't think you just
um,
let that one slide. It was something
no.
that you want to really bring to the front, yeah,
Right.
front of conversations.
So it's one they're selling. And so we have to have that amazing environment for them to do so. But beyond that, we have an expectation that sales is not the role of just one individual. Sales is everybody's responsibility. And
Yeah,
so every team member has a role in the sales process. And it might be different. It needs to be what that individual is comfortable with. So I don't think we can say across the board, dining does XYZ, because we have to make sure that whatever part of sales they're involved in is something they're comfortable with, or else it's going to feel forced and we never want that to, we don't want to put somebody in that position, first of
Sure.
all, and we don't want our tours or our residents or members to feel that either. So it needs to be something that they're naturally inclined to do. So I think it takes meeting with each team member, feel like what they're comfortable with in the tour process, but also having them follow up. So we want it to be personalized. So if somebody's very focused on the dining experience, which is so important, then let's have the chef follow up with them and answer any questions that they may have, either during the tour process or as a follow-up thereafter. Let's follow up on what we have. Such amazing team members that we need to celebrate those amazing successes that they're having, and one of the ways is including them in the tour process, and
Yeah.
also celebrating their wins on social media and so forth. I mean, that's really important. We have a teams channel where we our chefs will post like for events and or just meals that they did that day to share just the excitement and the camaraderie, but also the competition, the healthy competition that they generate amongst themselves. It does nothing but to benefit our resident member experience as well as the tour process. So I think it's just creating that culture of sales is everybody, not one person can make a community successful. Not me, not an ED, not a sales leader. It takes a successful team members working together. That's what is the magic sauce, and that's what creates success. So everybody has to feel valued, and everybody needs to be part of that tour or post-tour experience, as well as a resident onboard or resident or member onboarding, because that's equally important. Because just like when I went away to college, I was so excited to go away to college. UK fan for life, but I was so excited to go to college. But it was still hard,
Sure.
right? It was still a change. I love Lexington. I love the hospitality, but it was still a change. It was a different environment. It was different restaurants. It was different people. I was living away from my family. So think about our residents. They are moving from somewhere that they've lived potentially their whole adult life. So we have to make sure that that onboarding is also a smooth transition as well. And that's
Mhm.
by having that amazing positive environment, because we want to get our residents and members in. We want to get those prospects in toward, turn those tours into move-ins, but we have to keep them as well.
Yeah, it's and when you were telling me that, I loved all of that we just said, and
Hmm.
I think about sales as really being the introduction to that next phase, and when
Hmm.
sales is really, at its best, you're really just connecting the pieces and introducing them to the best pieces, and
You
so
are.
I
You
think
are.
about even what I do now with Unlike Health. I get to have these conversations with people, but I'm not the subject matter expert. I get to actually connect
Right.
our team to the real subject matter experts and the client leads, and once we have that connection, I think a lot of times our clients look at me like, "Oh, you're old news. We like this person a lot better," and that's a good feeling. I
That is a
love
good
that.
feeling.
It's when they feel like they've taken a step up, and I feel
Yes.
like it's kind of the same thing what you're saying, which is the salesperson is just bringing this energy to the conversation and then
Yes.
connecting, and whether it's through the onboarding process, whether it's connecting with the group who handles the dining and other
Hmm.
resident experiences, when they feel like they've taken that next step up, it's incredible. Because if it's the opposite, you're going to feel the effects of that.
You
If
are.
someone actually feels like they've downgraded after speaking with the salesperson, that's going to play out at some point. So it's really
Hmm.
important to
It's
share
so
that
important.
energy and how
Yes.
that's done. We've spoken about a lot about the intentionality and how to really engage from the hiring process on. What's the hardest part about maintaining this? Is there any pieces that you found that makes it a little bit more
Yeah.
challenging?
I would say that for us, us as at Aspenwood, our hardest was we did onboard 7 communities within a 30-day period of time.
Wow.
So that was a
I
challenge
would
to
say so.
ensure. I mean, not just logistically, but to ensure that that culture was bought in and that we were able to have enough physical presence, which is so
Mhm.
important to me, that we had that physical presence in those communities. So I would say that was the biggest challenge. But again, we've worked a system out. We've started relying on those really successful communities, those team members that are doing a rock star job. Let's bring those team members in to experience that in person. That has been so beneficial, and it's beneficial not just for those coming in, but also those that are doing a rock star job, to be able to say like, hey, kudos to you. We're bringing people in to collaborate with you because you're doing such a great job. And I think it's important to focus on all success. So it's important if a community, it goes from 78%, which is not where we want to be ever, right? To
Mhm.
80%, and 80% is not where we ever want to be. But we have to celebrate that because that's still a win and that's still a
Sure.
success. But it's equally important to celebrate that community that maintains 100% occupancy because while they may make it look easy, it's not easy. And so we have to make sure that we pay, just like with our good team members, right? You want to pay attention to all team members, not just your challenging ones. You want to
Sure.
make sure that your strong team members are also getting your focus and your attention as well. It goes along, all of it's part of the process.
Yeah. No, that's really great insights. I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah,
Just because, like you said, you have to celebrate all parts,
you
and
do.
not all the wins are going to be equal or
Equal.
the same amount.
Mm-mm.
You got to really focus on that community and what they're going through and the successes they're having there.
Right.
All right. So as we're wrapping up,
Yeah.
I want to give you the microphone, Heather, and say like
Okay.
if you can summarize like everything we spoke about, and if there's one thing that senior living leaders need to hear, it's this about culture. What is that? What's that one thing that you want to share with everybody? And
I
that's
think
a lot to
there is
unpack,
a lot.
right?
I think that culture is so important. And as we're working through culture, we need to make sure, and there's so much technology available to us now. There's technology everywhere you look. AI is the buzzword now, and AI is very impactful.
Mm,
I think that we need to make sure that when we're looking at new initiatives, that we make sure culture stays a part of that. And we need to make sure that it's going to be that new technology is going to be effective for our residents or members and also for our team members. So it can't just seem like a good thing. It can't be something, I don't want it to be something that just sells to new prospects to bring residents in. I want to make sure that it's something that is actually going to benefit our residents and our team members. And having our team members understand that is key to culture as well, because they know that we have their best interest at heart. So while we're rolling out things and through the rollout period, it is going to be the job might be a little bit more challenging as we go through a
mhm.
roll-up period. But in the end, it's going to make their job it's going to benefit their role. And I think that is part of culture, right? So helping all of our team members understand that what we do goes back to our residents, our team members, our members, and obviously our investors as well.
That's great.
But that's at the core of what those decisions are at the core of what we decide.
That's so key, and thank you so much for sharing this information. I'm better off, for it, and I know the community as well. Where can people find you to learn more, whether it's about what you're doing as a professional or with the Aspenwood Company?
Sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. The Aspenwood Company is active on LinkedIn. You can search my name on LinkedIn. I'm very active there. And then also the aspenwoodcompany.com is our website.
That's great, Heather. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you at the next event.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Larry.
All right, thank you, Heather. That's a wrap on today's episode of the Move in Senior Living Marketing. Thank you again to Heather Tussing for bringing clarity into what it really means to lead with purpose, create a meaningful culture, and bring humanity into the everyday work of senior living. Before we go, let's quickly recap the 3 actionable takeaways that I made notes of during this conversation. First, culture is felt, so make it intentional. Ask yourself, when someone walks into your community, do they feel joy, connection, and care? If not, it's time to align your internal values with your external experience. Second, don't hire fast, hire right. Heather waited 6 months for the right sales leader. That type of patience leads to long-term stability and cultural alignment. Use tools and team feedback to hire intentionally. And third, sales is a team sport. Every touch point matters, from the front desk to the dining room. Everyone influences the customer journey. Empower your full team to be a part of the sales story. Thanks again to Heather for joining us, and until next time, let's go create some meaningful connections.